Hidden behind Colorado's stunning mountains and glittering skylines, a darker truth festers. We infiltrated the back alleys of Denver tents, crowd the sidewalks, discarded needles crunch underfoot, and the sickly sweet stench of makeshift massage parlors taints the air once hailed as America's model of prosperity. Colorado now teeters on the brink of a full-blown humanitarian crisis. In this eye-opening exposé, we peel back the glossy surface to reveal a world of homelessness, desperation-driven prostitution, and the devastating grip of fentanyl and methamphetamine. This isn't the Colorado. You know it's worse than you think. Stay with us, because what we're about to uncover will change the way you see the American dream forever. Number 1. Homelessness crisis in Colorado. Homelessness in Colorado is not just rising, it is exploding. In the year 2023, the number of people experiencing homelessness in Colorado surged by an alarming 39%, reaching over 14,000 individuals. In Denver alone, the heart of the state, more than 10,000 people are now living without stable shelter, placing the city among the top 5 worst in the entire country for homelessness. This isn't just a story about numbers, it's a human tragedy unfolding before our eyes. And what's even more heartbreaking is how the face of homelessness is changing. It is no longer just single men struggling with addiction or mental health issues today. More and more families, pregnant women, and even young children are being swept into the storm. In fact, according to recent reports, the number of school-aged children experiencing homelessness has spiked to over 22,000 students across the state during the 2024 to 2025 academic year. Imagine trying to do your homework while living out of a car or wondering where your next meal will come from, instead of dreaming about the future. It is a cruel twist of fate for the youngest among us. But how did we get here? The roots of this crisis run deep. Skyrocketing rents have left many families one missed paycheck away from the streets. In the past 2 years alone, the average rent in Denver rose by more than 17%, while wages barely budged by less than 4%. Gentrification has only made things worse. As once affordable neighborhoods transform into trendy hotspots, longtime residents are pushed out left with nowhere to go and no safety net to catch them. Add to that the severe shortage of low-income housing with fewer than 20 affordable units available for every 100 low-income renters, and you have a recipe for disaster. Facing mounting pressure, local governments have scrambled to respond. Initiatives like purchasing motels to convert them into emergency shelters and launching programs to connect people with temporary housing have shown some promise. In the past year, the state of Colorado allocated more than $100 million toward homeless services, a record-breaking figure. However, as many experts point out, these efforts often act like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. They offer temporary relief but do not address the deeper systemic issues at play, and the system itself seems stuck in a vicious cycle. Shelters are often overcrowded and under-resourced. Many unhoused individuals, especially families, avoid them altogether due to safety concerns or strict rules that can force families to split up. Meanwhile, affordable housing projects face layers of bureaucratic red tape delaying construction for years, while the human toll keeps mounting every single day. As we walk the streets lined with tents or pass by abandoned lots now turned into makeshift villages, the question becomes impossible to ignore. How did a state once praised for its quality of life become a battleground of survival for so many? The truth is, homelessness is no longer someone else's problem. It is here, it is growing, and it demands more than quick fixes and empty promises. It demands a real coordinated response that tackles housing, healthcare, mental health, and social support all at once. Number 2, prostitution, a desperate survival. When survival is on the line, the choices people make are often heartbreaking. In Colorado, prostitution remains illegal under state law, a fact that continues to trap countless vulnerable individuals in a vicious cycle of criminalization and despair. The penalties tied to prostitution charges are heavy, often leading to permanent marks on a person's record, making it nearly impossible for them to find housing-stable employment or even basic dignity again. A single arrest can follow someone for life long after the night they made that desperate choice just to stay alive. And who are the faces behind this underground world? Increasingly, they are not what you might expect. Today, a growing number of those caught in the web of forced sex work are homeless women and LGBTQ+ youth. According to a 2024 report from the National Human Trafficking Hotline, more than 65% of sex trafficking victims in Colorado had previously experienced homelessness or unstable housing. For these individuals, vulnerability is a daily companion, and predators know exactly where to find them. Colorado's geography and booming tourism industry have only made matters worse. Sitting at the crossroads of major highways and drawing millions of visitors each year, the state has unintentionally become a magnet for human trafficking networks. In 2024 alone, authorities reported a staggering 282 cases of human trafficking, a figure that experts believe is just the tip of the iceberg. Behind every statistic is a story of exploitation, fear, and a silent cry for help that too often goes unheard. Trying to escape this nightmare is anything but easy. Many victims of prostitution and trafficking are treated not as survivors, but as criminals. They are arrested, booked, and stigmatized rather than offered the support they so desperately need. Imagine being punished for the very thing that was done to you. That is the cruel paradox so many live with every single day. Even for those lucky enough to reach out for help, the road to recovery is steep and filled with obstacles. Non-profit organizations working to rescue and rehabilitate victims are overwhelmed and underfunded. Take, for instance, the case of Colorado's few dedicated anti-trafficking shelters. They can serve only a fraction of those who seek refuge. According to the Colorado Coalition Against Sexual Assault, less than 25% of identified trafficking victims received access to specialized recovery services in 2024. Funding shortfalls mean that some shelters have waiting lists stretching months long, forcing survivors back into the very dangers they tried to flee. And yet, despite these grim realities, hope is not lost. Organizations like the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking and Streets Hope continue to push forward one life at a time. They provide emergency housing counseling, legal aid, and most importantly, a reminder to victims that they are more than the worst things that have happened to them. But without broader systemic change and without public awareness and support, their uphill battle remains brutally difficult. As we peel back the layers of Colorado's homelessness crisis, it becomes clear that prostitution here is not simply about vice or personal choice. It is about survival. It is about systems that fail the most vulnerable. It is about the faces we pass every day and do not see. And until we confront this hidden reality with compassion and action, the cycle will continue dragging countless more into the shadows. Number 3. Fentanyl and meth devastation. If homelessness is the slow erosion of a life, then drugs are the tidal wave that drowns it. In Colorado, the drug crisis has spiraled into a full-blown catastrophe. In the year 2023 alone, nearly 1,900 people lost their lives to drug overdoses across the state. That is the equivalent of wiping out an entire small town in just 12 months. And at the heart of this grim statistic lies one name: fentanyl. This synthetic opioid, up to 50 times stronger than heroin, was responsible for close to 60% of all overdose deaths, according to data from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. But fentanyl is just one side of the coin. On the other side, methamphetamine continues its brutal assault, especially among Colorado's homeless population. Meth doesn't just destroy the body, it rewires the brain. Prolonged use leads to severe neurological damage, often triggering psychosis, extreme paranoia, and permanent cognitive decline. Imagine waking up one day, unable to trust your own thoughts. That is the devastating legacy meth leaves behind. And for those living on the streets, drugs are not simply a choice, they are often a survival tool. Picture a freezing night in Denver where temperatures plunge below 0 degrees. A small hit of meth might mean the difference between succumbing to hypothermia or staying awake just long enough to see the morning light. when hunger gnaws at their stomachs and danger lurks around every corner. Some turn to drugs as a cruel but effective shield against the brutal reality of life without shelter. Despite the staggering human cost, Colorado's healthcare system is struggling to keep up programs that distribute Narcan. The life-saving medication that can reverse opioid overdoses have expanded, but they still fall painfully short. In 2024, only about 55% of the state's homeless outreach teams were equipped with sufficient supplies of Narcan, leaving thousands vulnerable in the event of an overdose. Meanwhile, the treatment landscape paints an equally grim picture. Rehabilitation centers are overwhelmed. Many facilities report wait lists stretching up to 6 months an eternity when someone's life hangs in the balance. For every 100 people seeking help for opioid or methamphetamine addiction, there are only enough beds available for about 20. That means 80 out of every 100 people, desperate for recovery, are turned away, often left to spiral even deeper into addiction. Even hospitals, the last line of defense, are reaching their breaking point. Emergency rooms are flooded with overdose cases, psychiatric emergencies triggered by meth-induced psychosis, and the countless complications that come with prolonged drug use. Doctors and nurses speak of compassion, fatigue, the slow numbing of the soul that comes from saving the same faces over and over, only to see them return days or weeks later, a little more broken each time. And so the cycle churns on: more drugs, more deaths, more lost futures. Number 4. The vicious cycle of streets. It is often said that when it rains, it pours. But for many people living on the streets of Colorado, it feels less like rain and more like an endless storm, a brutal, unrelenting cycle that traps them in despair. At the center of this storm is a vicious triangle: homelessness, prostitution, and drug addiction. Each feeds into the next, spinning people deeper into a reality that feels almost impossible to escape. It often starts with losing a home. Without a safe place to sleep or shower, finding a job becomes a near impossible task. Survival takes precedence over everything else. And in that desperate search for food, shelter, and security, some individuals are forced to turn to selling their bodies. According to the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, over 40% of women experiencing homelessness in the state have engaged in survival sex, trading sex for food, a place to sleep, or basic necessities. For many, it is not a choice. It is the price of staying alive one more night. But survival comes with a heavy cost. To numb the pain, the shame, and the fear, drugs often enter the picture. Methamphetamine and fentanyl become not just habits, but lifelines, brief moments of escape from a reality too harsh to face sober. Tragically, substance use only worsens the spiral. Addiction makes it harder to hold down even the most basic shelter opportunities or to comply with the strict rules of transitional housing programs. Before long, the same person who needed just a hand up finds themselves deeper in the streets than ever before. It is a cruel loop, and one that is heartbreakingly familiar across Colorado. In fact, in 2024, more than 70% of individuals experiencing chronic homelessness reported struggles with substance use disorders, according to the Colorado Department of Human Services. And among victims of trafficking, identified statewide, nearly 60% had prior histories of homelessness and drug use, painting a stark picture of just how intertwined these issues really are. You might wonder, where is the safety net? Unfortunately, that safety net is riddled with holes. Services meant to help often operate in silos like islands in a rough sea. Housing agencies work separately from healthcare providers, who work separately from mental health counselors, who work separately from legal aid. The result: people are forced to navigate a broken maze, trying to piece together support from a dozen different sources, a near impossible task when you are already battling trauma, addiction, and survival on a daily basis. And the gaps are not small. As of early 2025, Colorado has fewer than half the needed emergency shelter beds for its homeless population. Only about 28% of individuals with co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders were able to access integrated treatment programs. Without a system that addresses housing, healthcare, mental health, and legal services together, People fall through the cracks, and the cracks are widening. But here's the hard truth. Until we start treating homelessness, prostitution, and drug addiction not as isolated problems, but as interconnected symptoms of deeper societal failures, nothing will truly change. We need coordinated strategies that see the whole person, not just their addiction, not just their housing status, not just their criminal record. Imagine a system where a woman escaping trafficking could immediately access emergency shelter, trauma, counseling, addiction treatment, and legal aid all under one roof, without being shuffled from agency to agency. Imagine if recovering from addiction did not mean losing access to transitional housing, or if accessing mental health services was as simple as walking through a single open door. This is not a fantasy. It is a necessity. Because every day that we allow people to remain trapped in this vicious cycle, we lose more than just lives. We lose pieces of our shared humanity. Number 5. Silent victims, children and seniors. When we think of homelessness, we often picture rugged middle-aged men huddled on street corners. But the reality, especially in Colorado, is far more heartbreaking and far more hidden. Among the rising tide of people without homes are two groups. We rarely talk about children and seniors. They are the silent victims of a crisis that shows no signs of slowing down. Let's start with the children. Imagine trying to navigate school while living in a car, a shelter, or sometimes no shelter at all. In the 2023 to 2024 school year, the number of homeless students in Colorado soared to nearly 23,000. That's enough children to fill every seat in more than 300 elementary schools. Behind every one of those numbers is a young life struggling not just with math homework, but with hunger, fear, and deep emotional scars. The impact on these kids goes far beyond missed homework assignments. Homelessness strips away the stability that is crucial for healthy childhood development. Studies show that homeless students are more than twice as likely to suffer from severe anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder compared to their housed peers. They are also far more likely to drop out of school altogether, setting them up for a lifetime of challenges before they even get a real chance to dream. And if you think the heartbreak stops with the young, think again. More and more seniors are finding themselves without a roof over their heads. Rising costs of living, from skyrocketing rent to unaffordable health care, have pushed thousands of older Coloradans out of their homes and onto the streets. According to the Colorado Center on Law and Policy, people age 60 and older now make up nearly 16% of the state's homeless population as of early 2025, a sharp increase from just a decade ago. For these elderly individuals, homelessness is not just uncomfortable, it is often deadly. Living outdoors accelerates health problems like heart disease, respiratory illness, and untreated chronic conditions. A simple cold can turn into pneumonia. A missed dose of medication can spiral into a life-threatening emergency, and safety is a daily concern. Seniors sleeping rough are especially vulnerable to theft, violence, and exploitation, often unable to defend themselves or seek help quickly enough. What is perhaps most devastating is the loneliness that comes with it. Imagine reaching the twilight of your life, only to spend your days searching for shelter and your nights praying for safety. Imagine the years of hard work, sacrifice, and dignity erased by a society that seems to have forgotten you exist. That is the reality for far too many. And yet, despite the urgency, the support systems in place remain woefully inadequate. Emergency shelters are often not equipped to handle the specific medical and mobility needs of seniors. School districts struggle to provide consistent support for homeless students, many of whom fall through the cracks, despite programs like the McKinney-Vento Act aimed at protecting them. The truth is, these are not just homeless people. They are our children, our grandparents, our neighbors. They are the living proof that homelessness does not discriminate. It can touch the young, the old, and everyone in between. Number 6. Time to act for Colorado. After everything we have seen, the growing camps, the shattered families, the silent victims, one truth is undeniable: we cannot afford to look away anymore. Colorado is standing at a crossroads, and the time to act is now. If we truly want to break the vicious cycles of homelessness, addiction, and despair, it is going to take more than good intentions. It is going to take real investment, real change, and a real shift in how we think about our most vulnerable neighbors. First and foremost, we must invest heavily in affordable housing studies. From the Colorado Division of Housing show that as of early 2025, the state faces a shortage of more than 120,000 affordable units. That is not just a number, that is 120,000 families, seniors and young people left out in the cold building. More low-income housing is not optional. It is the foundation upon which all other solutions must stand. Alongside housing, we must expand access to mental health services and addiction recovery programs. Homelessness and substance use disorders are intertwined, and tackling one without addressing the other is like bailing water from a sinking boat without fixing the leak. Policy changes must also pave the way. Colorado's zoning laws and regulatory barriers have historically slowed down the creation of affordable housing. It is time to rethink those outdated systems by easing restrictions and encouraging the development of supportive housing projects that combine affordable rent with on-site services. We can start to rebuild the safety net that so many have fallen through. Other cities have shown that it works in places where housing-first strategies were implemented. Chronic homelessness dropped by more than 30% within 5 years. We can do the same here, but only if we have the political will to make it happen. Of course, systemic change does not stop at government action. It starts with us, with every single member of our community. We have to change the way we see homelessness and addiction. These are not moral failings or personal choices. They are symptoms of larger systemic breakdowns, broken housing markets, broken healthcare systems, broken safety nets. When we strip away the stigma, we begin to see the human beings underneath people who once had dreams, families, and futures just like the rest of us. Community involvement is not just helpful, it is essential. Non-profit organizations working on the front lines offering shelter, healthcare, legal aid, and counseling are stretched thinner than ever. According to the Colorado Nonprofit Association, over 60% of local nonprofits reported significant funding gaps in 2024, forcing them to cut critical services. Volunteering time, donating money, or even simply spreading awareness about the realities of homelessness can have a ripple effect. Every meal served, every shelter bed funded, every moment of kindness matters. And let us not underestimate the power of compassion. Small acts: smiling at someone on the street, supporting local programs, attending public meetings about affordable housing, all send a powerful message. We see you, we care. You are not invisible. Because at the end of the day, the crisis unfolding in Colorado is not just about tense needles or statistics. It is about people. It is about the kind of society we choose to be. Will we be a community that turns away from suffering, or one that rises to meet it with open arms and real solutions? The choice is ours. The time is now. Let's build a Colorado where no one is left behind. As we have seen, Colorado, a state once celebrated for its beauty and prosperity, is now battling a humanitarian crisis unlike anything it has faced before. From rising homelessness to the devastating impacts of addiction and poverty, the challenges are immense. But within every challenge lies an opportunity for awareness, for empathy, and for change. At NVL Travel Documentary, we believe that stories like this matter. They deserve to be seen, heard, and remembered. If this journey moved you, if it opened your eyes to a reality often hidden from view, we invite you to share this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments and join our growing community. Together, through understanding and action, we can build a world where no one is left behind. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep exploring.